So we've got Alicia coming up towards the end of the programme today. But, darling, have you ever fancied time away from your partner?
From you? Why would I ever want to do anything like that?
Exactly what I thought.
Yes.
I, though, however, think there's some mileage in this, because according to one of our guests coming up, you could take a holiday to reignite the passion. When I say a holiday, I'm not talking about 2 weeks or anything. We're talking about a marriage sabbatical. Well, in a moment, we'll be meeting someone who did just that, but we'd like to know what you think at home too. If you think marriage sabbaticals, which would explain exactly what they are a good idea, what you've got to do is tweet using the hashtag YesBreak. And if you think they're a bad idea...
Let me guess. Is it hashtag no break?
Yeah.
Yes, and we'll get the results at the end of the chat. So, marriage sabbaticals. We must make clear, we've got Flick with us, Everett, who took a sabbatical, and also we've got psychologist Joe Hemmings, who doesn't agree with these. But let's just make clear, a sabbatical is not you can go off and do what you like and see other people, is it, Flick?
No, it's not a trial separation. It's not the beginning of the end. It's just a way of saying maybe things are getting on top of us a bit. Perhaps we've been married for a long time and we could do with reminding ourselves who we are on our own, independently, without each other.
How did you and your husband get to this point where you thought, I really do think we need a break?
10 long years. We had kids, separate kids. You know, I had stepkids, he did too. We ran a business together, we'd had money problems, and it had all been grinding us down for a little while. And I think we were starting to argue quite regularly, and we didn't want to get divorced. You know, we had children, we still loved each other, and we thought maybe there's some mileage in actually just taking some time apart from each other and seeing how that goes.
And had you read anything about this, or was it just a conclusion that you came to?
Yeah,
together?
I hadn't really, actually. I know people do it. I sort of found out later that it's not that uncommon, but we just came to the conclusion we were quite lucky in that we had somewhere for him to go a couple of nights a week. So it wasn't a huge break of 6 months or anything like that.
So it wasn't like, let's part, let's not see each other,
no.
Don't phone. It was, you were still having
a
relationship.
It's like almost like a detoxing.
Yes.
Isn't it?
It is like that. Yeah. You know, you have 2 nights a week off booze.
Yes.
I had 2 nights a week off my husband. It worked really well.
Right. And this has also been put forward recently. The actress Emma Thompson, she suggested that married couples may benefit from taking a break like this. So that's what we're talking about. And we have got the psychologist Joe Hemmings here to give her take on that. I must admit, I can see how in some cases that could work. What's your view?
I tend not to agree with it, and actually I think what Flick had was more of a sort of part-time marriage than actually a sabbatical, because your husband was away 2 nights a week. So when you take a sabbatical from work, you're taking 3 months off to do whatever you want to do. You're not going to work part-time. If you're still working 3 days a week, that's not really a sabbatical. So I'm not entirely sure this is what I would call a marriage sabbatical. It's normally a fixed, finite period of time when you don't see each other. I do feel it's not addressing the issues, that actually you decide to part for a period of time when actually I think those issues need to be addressed, perhaps with each other, with a counsellor, with a third party, someone who's impartial, to actually find what the root of the problem is in the first instance, to perhaps give each other space within your marriage rather than take the space away from your marriage.
Did you think, Flick, your husband, about counselling? I heard it got so bad. Did you think, we're in danger of splitting up here before you decided on this sabbatical
We
plan?
had counselling, in fact, a couple of years earlier, and it was quite helpful, and it got us through a dodgy patch for a while. But I think sometimes, especially when you work together and you spend a lot of time together,
tell me about it.
Not that you would know.
Not that you would know. But I'll tell you what you would know and what you feel. I often say that I think the reason why Ruth and I get on so well together is that we do actually spend a lot of time apart, which we don't plan
and we do a
because
lot of different things separately.
Yeah.
So it's always nice to come together.
People see us work together. We're not. We don't live in each other's pockets.
It's space within your relationship.
But I have to say, the happiest time of my life, Ruth used to have her own house. And she used to live a number of miles away, and it was great. And I could go and visit her, and she would prepare meals. It'd be like date nights. It was lovely.
I know, Joe, I do, and I know you don't totally agree with this, but I know lots of friends who say, actually, you know, if my husband's away on business or something, I don't really miss him as much as I think I should, because actually we all need our own space. So maybe
I 100% agree with that.
All of us
would,
it would do us good
the
to have
relationship.
that break.
I think when it's a sort of finite period of time when you are completely separate from each other, it adds sort of more questions than it gives answers. So I think that's right. We don't want to live in each other's pockets. We want to give each other.
Say your relationship's pretty
some
rubbish.
space.
Say you look there and you know, and you say, this is dead, this is flagging, this is like a battery that needs recharged. So there's two alternatives. We either get divorced or we call some time out on this. Surely that's the lesser of two evils.
Well, of those two, yes, but of course you have got other alternatives. You can either try and work this out between you, can go and see a counsellor, a third party who will help you get to the bottom of this. You can agree to give each other more space, more independence within that relationship. There are a lot of other ways of doing it. It's a bit of a last resort, and I think it's quite a risky strategy as well, because actually what would happen is if someone goes off and one of those partners says, well, actually, I prefer life like this. I don't really want to come back.
Say to Flick that would be my worry. And also, does, you know, having a sabbatical from your marriage mean you can go off and have other partners, or, you know, do they think it's carte blanche to kind of go and discover other things?
I think if you do think that you are in trouble, as Jo says, I think that probably would be the beginning of the end for most couples if that was the route that you went down. But I think for most people who want to take that time out, it's more about remembering who you are as an individual, because I think in a long marriage you can forget that and you sort of fuse.
But therefore, Flick, something has to change or there was no point doing it. And often you forget this in arguments. So I'd say, what is the point of having an argument if things don't change as a result of it? So what changed in you and your husband's relationship?
That's a very good question. And
thank you very much. Thank you.
That's not a problem. Quite a lot did, actually. We started to appreciate each other more, because I think we had done that typical thing of taking one another for granted, niggling over little annoying, stupid domestic things. And because we had that break and I got to watch TV that I liked and he got to go and watch box sets that he liked, you know, it was
as
just
simple as that sometimes.
It can be
It is as simple as that.
Yeah, see friends separately maybe, because we had a tendency to kind of roll back together to always do the same things and end up going to the same places.
But Flick, can I ask you, when he took us 2 nights away and after 6 weeks or so of doing this, did you ever catch yourself involuntarily saying, "Ooh, fancy him," or "quite like him"? Oh no, okay, that's that question.
That was the wrong face, it was the wrong face. Yes, of course. I think it made me appreciate everything about him much more, actually, because I had that space to be myself and to be alone, and sometimes you just need a bit of that, and a couple of nights a week eating dinner by yourself will really make you appreciate your partner sitting across the table from you.
There's an old saying from Ireland, really, which summed up as this.
Another one.
Is it? What is the
Hang your
saying?
fiddle at the door, is
No,
it?
it's the following. It is, "You'll lick where it lay," which means, well, that's obvious, isn't it?
When you if
you're an animal and you have food on the floor, whatever it is, or food in the bowl, and the animal doesn't eat it, you take it away, and the animal eventually goes back to the bowl, sniffs and lick where the food lay.
It's a charming analogy.
It's a charming analogy. So basically, remember that. So when you take something away that you realise you value in your life, let's have a look at the worm. Let's have a look at what folk are saying. Are marriage sabbaticals a good idea? Well, 2/3 of you say no. 2/3 of you are against it. But then a third of you think it's quite a good idea.
Well, it worked for Flick. It's very interesting debate. Thank you, Jo. It's got us all thinking.
We're going to take a break now. A wee sabbatical.
Definitely taking a break.
It lasts a few minutes. Back after this.